If you have a criminal profile, they say, well, he was a bad guy. If you're a quote unquote good guy, it still doesn't matter. If you stand still like Eric Garner, you get killed. If you run like Freddie Gray, you get killed. If your pants are down like Trayvon, you die. If your pants are up like Walter Scott, you die. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, the problem isn't the people being killed. It's the people who are rendered invisible at first, and then when they get seen and become legible, they're still nobody. That's the problem. We need fundamental changes in society. Fundamentally, we have to, first of all, deal with the issue of white supremacy. This isn't an issue of racism. This is an issue of white supremacy. We live in a world where we simply believe that white people's lives are worth more and that black lives aren't worth much. And because of that, even the most well-meaning cop looks at a black body and still may have a bias. And it's not just white cops. It's also black cops. There's a study out of Stanford that says that police officers tend to look at black children as older and more guilty than they are, which means that you see that 13-year-old boy or a 12-year-old Tamir Rice, and you think he's 21 as they did, and you shoot him like he's 21, having a real gun instead of a play gun, because that's what happens. Even though white kids do it all the time with no consequence. So we need to redress this issue of white supremacy. We also need to deal with this question of policing. We have to ask, what role do we really want police officers to have? Do we want them to be an occupying force in our community, or do we want them to have a different role? The whole idea of broken windows policing, the idea of getting an Eric Garner off the corner for selling Lucy's cigarettes, the idea of chasing down a guy for selling CDs when the store owners don't care. That itself is part of a particular understanding of policing that we ultimately have to change.
And God, please forgive me, and you can delete me if you're getting mad at me. If you are white and you working in a black community and you are racist, you need to be ashamed of yourself. You stood up there and took an oath. If this is not where you want to work at, then you need to take your behind somewhere else. I decided to work in the African American community because I'm African American and I wanted to make a difference. I could have worked in Parma. I could have worked in Lakewood. I could have worked in North Olmsted. I'm a double minority. They would have got 2 hits for me because I'm African American and I'm a female. I'm here because I wanted to make a difference. But how dare you stand next to me in the same uniform and murder somebody? How dare you? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. So why don't we just keep it real? If you're that officer that know good and well you got a God complex, you're afraid of people that don't look like you have no business in that uniform. Take it off. If you're afraid to go and talk to an African-American female or male or a Mexican male or female because they're not white like you, take the uniform off. You have no business being a police officer. Because there's many of us that will give our life for anybody. And we took this oath and we meant it. If you are that officer that's prejudiced, take the uniform off and put the KKK hoodie on. Because I will not stand for that. If you're an officer that works with me and you're wrong, I will tell you you're wrong. My heart goes out to that young man's family because if it was my son, I don't know what I would do. But to my brothers and sisters, my juvenile brothers and sisters, I am your keeper. Put them guns down, y'all. We killing each other. And the reason why all this racist stuff keeps going on is because we're divided. We're killing each other. We're not standing together.
1. Had any of the victims been white, the police force would not have found a reason to withhold and or place illegitimate evidence at the scenes of the crimes. 2. Had any of the victims been white, their bodies would not have been left in the streets like undomesticated animals for hours and hours on end. 3. Had any of the victims been white, said victim would have been shot in the foot. Said victim would have been shot in the leg. Said victim would have been shot in the hip. Said victim would not have been shot fatally. Police brutality is alive and well, and the very people that I'm supposed to trust with my life are the very people taking the lives of my brothers. There's your enlightenment. Now, in no way am I saying that every officer on the police force abuses their power. I have met some very, very kind-hearted police officers. And for those officers that do their jobs the right way, protecting our communities and not instilling fear in them, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for the work that you put in. Thank you for putting your life on the line every single time that you put on that badge. But unfortunately, as we all should know, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. The law every single day by committing the worst crime possible, being black in America. To the white people, to the people of every nationality that understands that this is a problem, thank you for speaking up. Thank you for holding our hands. Thank you for not remaining silent. Instead of sitting back on Twitter trying to justify why a young black male deserves to be murdered cold in the streets of America. And I don't want a pat on the back. I don't want an apology. I want change. Okay, all lives matter. Thank you for pointing out the obvious. Funny thing about it though, you could have fooled me If I have to go out to these streets and I have to scream Black Lives Matter to remind you that Black Lives Matter, to prevent another one of my young brothers being murdered senselessly in these streets, then that's what I'm going to do. Black people, I love you. Asian people, I love you. Mi Latinos y mi Latinas, te amo. And white people, I love you. Please understand that this is not an attack. This is retaliation.